I'm a little late to the party, but fuck it. Um, Valentine's Day was a couple of days ago, and I kind of figured like Valentine's Day is a very separated holiday. Like, a lot of people really hate it, and a lot of people really like it. So I figured, what better time to do like a best and worst storytime video? Um, so I couldn't actually choose between like the absolute best or absolute worst of different categories because fuck it, why? Um, but I kind of figured like these were the best ones that I could think of that came to mind, whatever. And if I don't ramble for too long per story, maybe there will be time for some honorable mentions. Um, Moving on, we're going to start with my worst one, or one of my worst ones, um, because why not? Start it off with a bang. Um, so, yeah. Back in high school, I was super, like, obsessively in love with this guy, who shall remain nameless. Um, and we were really close friends, had been for about 2 years. We talked like every day, like texting on the phone, whatever. And it just kind of like grew and grew. Um, and this one particular Valentine's Day, him and his long term girlfriend had been split up for about 2 months. So I kind of figured, like, if there was ever going to be a chance for me to tell him how I feel, this is it. So I invited him to this party that I was having, and it was just me, him, and a couple of other friends at my friend's house. Um, he shows up, and we're all just drinking and listening to music, talking, having a good time. And after a couple hours, um, he'd had a little bit too much to drink and was feeling tired or sick or something and wanted to lay down. So I walked him to the room that he was sleeping in. And we get to the doorway and he says, "Hey, you should like hang out with me until I fall asleep." And I was like, "Sure, that would be fucking awesome." Okay, cuz I was kind of like sad cuz I didn't want to like announce how I felt to everyone, even though, like, let's be real, they were my friends. They all already knew. Props to all my friends from that time period because he was like all I ever talked about. Um, he was kind of like my first crush, so I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know like how much was too much, or like, hey, you should probably stop talking about him now. It's kind of fucking annoying. Like, I had no clue about any of it. So, um, yeah. Sorry guys. Um, but anyway, so I didn't want to announce it in front of everybody and make it super awkward. So, um, I was more than happy to join him in the bedroom and like we could talk about it and whatever. Um, so he lays down and I sit down at the foot of the bed and he's like, "Hey, um, are you not gonna come lay down with me?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to. Okay." Um, Moving out of the friend zone one like crawl at a time. And I get up there and he kind of like covers me with the blanket and like scooches me in. And I'm like, "Okay, this is fucking awesome. I can't breathe. That sucks. Um, I need to tell him. I know I need to tell him. I need to just get it out there. I need to grow a pair, do it, the whole nine." And I'm like, well, now or never, bitch. So I basically spill the beans. Like, we're cuddling at this point, like half-assedly. And I'm like, well, so hey, um, we've been friends for a while now. We talk like every day. Like, I really like you. And I wasn't going to say anything because you were with somebody and I'm not that person. And like, hey, but you're single now. And like, give me a shot, dude. Nope. Uh, so yeah, he kind of like, I don't know, like he pulled me in closer and we were like actually cuddling at that point, and then he starts kissing me and I'm like over the moon cuz like I am officially no longer in the friend zone. I told him how I felt and his response is kissing. okay, clearly this wasn't like the worst fucking idea I've ever had in my life. Awesome. So he pulls away and he's like, hey, so how would you feel about like messing around? And I'm like sex? Fuck. No. No, no, no. Um, Like I'm not ready for that. Sorry. Whoa. Um, and he says, okay, yeah, no problem. Like, no worries. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he starts kissing me again, and then like he pulls away again, and he's like, hey, so do you want to go out? And I'm like, oh, you want me to leave? Yeah, I did. He says, no, I mean, like, do you want to go out with me? And I'm like, oh, right, of course that's what you meant. Right. Um, so are you sure? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, are you too drunk for this conversation? Like, I was serious. Like, I really like you. Like, I'm not even moderately intoxicated. Like, I genuinely like you. Um, I really don't want to, you know, no. Like, are you too drunk for this? And he says, no, I've been thinking about it for a while. And I'm like, oh, well, fuck yeah, okay. Sweet. So, he falls asleep. I run out and I tell my friend what happened. I am super stoked. I am like, holy shit over the moon. I'm officially his girlfriend, like, score. Um, and then I go back in there, and one of my friends is like trying to pull a cock block move. Like, he's laying next to my boyfriend, and I'm like, whoa, what are you doing in here? Get out. And he's like, no, this is where I'm supposed to sleep too. And I'm like, my life. Really? Fuck. Okay. So I squeeze between boyfriend and the wall. I'm like, like, you're not gonna get me. I'm still getting my cuddles. Like, fuck you, dude. Um, so that was super fun. We wake up the next day, and he had somewhere he had to go, and I had somewhere I had to go, but he didn't say anything about it. Like, he didn't mention being together. He didn't, like, call me babe or anything. Like, he was just kind of being normal. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's just really shy because, you know, it's new and he doesn't really want to announce it yet. No. So, my friend um, says, well, you know, hey, I need another cup of coffee anyways, dumps out her cup, and is like, hey, I'll just go talk to him. Like, you stay in here in the bathroom, I'll find out what's going on. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks, bitch. So she goes out, and after a couple of minutes, she comes back, and he's right behind her. And I'm like, dude, I didn't mean, like, bring him with you. Shit. But he says, hey, yeah, my ride's here. I gotta go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And, like, I gave him a hug goodbye, and that wasn't abnormal at all. And he leaves. So I look to her, and I'm like, okay, what did he say? Did you talk to him? And she says, yeah. So he was really drunk last night. He doesn't remember asking you out at all. Like, doesn't remember any of that. And I'm like, why though? Like, my life. Why? Um, so I leave. I cry all the way to lunch, all the way home. And then after, like, I don't know, probably a good few hours, like, it's probably like 3, 4 hours between, like, when he left to when I texted. So I texted, I was like, hey, are you busy right now? He says, no. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I called. And I'm like, hey, so, you know, you told her that, you know, you didn't remember asking me out last night. And he says, no, I didn't. Like, I'm really sorry. I don't remember. And I'm like, no, no, that's totally fine. But, you know, just because you don't remember asking doesn't mean we can't still be together anyway. Like, I am still down. And he says, well, honestly, like, you know, her and I have only been split up for a couple of months. Like, I'm not really looking for a relationship right now. Like, I kind of just want to, you know, be alone for a while. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Cue heartbreak. And he's like, well, you know, whenever I do want a relationship, like, I will let you know. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off the phone. And he's like, are you crying? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm great. I'm fine. But I'm going to get off the phone. Like, my mom's calling me. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, text me though, okay? And I'm like, okay, sure. I'll get right the fuck on that. Um, so I get off the phone and I cry and I'm just like shit. And then we talked about it in text message and I was just like, sorry, I was really upset. Like I wasn't trying to be a dick, but like, um, so they literally got together like 2 hours after him and I got off the phone. They'd been split up for like 2 months, but like 2 hours after we got off that phone call, I guess he went over there to talk to her or something, get like a ring back from her or something, and they ended up getting back together that day. And I was like, well, fuck my life. Like, okay, cool beans. Um, Luckily, we were able to stay friends after that, so that was cool. Um, but yeah, so that kind of sucked. Um, so my best one was probably a couple of days ago. Um, my fiance and I moved here about a year ago, and this is our first Valentine's Day since we moved here. Um, and basically, like, he knew that he was going to have to work on Valentine's Day. So he set it up to where we would go on this, like, double date type of thing with one of his coworkers. We were going to go bowling and whatever, but it wouldn't be on Valentine's Day. It would be like a couple of days before. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, cool. Whatever. Fuck commercialized holidays. Um, and so afterwards, we went to Walmart and picked up a couple of things for the house. Nothing big. We looked at the Valentine's aisle, and I guess he was taking like a mental note of everything that I looked at, everything I picked up, everything that I was like, oh, look, this is cute, or like, this is fucking stupid. Um, Whatever. He'd asked me a couple of questions that like I didn't pick up on at the time. Like, so would you prefer like do you prefer like box chocolate or like a box of assorted chocolate? And I'm like, what do you mean? He says like, well, would you prefer like one box full of like Hershey's Kisses or something or like a box of assorted chocolates? And I'm like, oh, um, probably assorted because it would take me forever to eat them. So it'd be nice to like have a surprise, I guess. And he's like, okay, cool. The morning of Valentine's Day, he comes home from work and he's like, hands me this bouquet of roses and this purple people eater looking plushie that we saw. And I was like, wow, like, this is the one that I was talking about at the store. And he was like, I know, I remembered. And I'm like, okay, what's all this for though? And he says, well, it's Valentine's Day. And I'm like, right, but like we've never really been overly commercial for Valentine's Days anyway. Like, what's the difference with this one? And he says, well, honestly, like, we just moved here and I know that I'm going to be at work all day and you're going to be home by yourself. And, like, I kind of figured why not? Plus, like, I had the money to do like, most of what I wanted to do. So I went ahead and just kind of went and, got some of the stuff I wanted to get for you. And I'm like, okay, well, we've had a few Valentine's days together. What, like, all of a sudden, this one's super commercial. Like, we usually, like, do something not on Valentine's Day as a deliberate fuck you to Valentine's Day. Or, like, we don't really do much. Like, we'll, like, chill and watch a movie or something. Um, this, I think you're too much, Gene, went overkill. But it was just really sweet and really thoughtful because he knew that I was going to be here like by myself the whole day. So I thought that it was really cute. He wanted to do something like out of the norm and surprise and special and whatever. So that was pretty cool. Um, so since I didn't ramble for fucking forever, honorable mentions. My worst honorable mention is I was with this dude in high school for about 2 years, and I don't know how we made it past this to make it to 2 years, but we did because I'm stupid apparently. But we got together in November, and I went to visit my mom for Christmas break. I was still in high school, I was like 16. Um, but I went to go visit my mom for Christmas break. And while I'm gone, I guess he cheated on me with his ex-girlfriend. And so when I get back in like January, Nothing is said, nothing is, out of, like, nobody mentions anything, whatever. Like, he was a little grumpy towards me. We kind of got into a lot of arguments, and like he was kind of distant, and the ex-girlfriend lived with him because it was still like knee deep in snow. And they were from a different state, so her moving out wasn't really an option at that point. At least that made sense to me at the time. Whatever. But yeah, so the ex-girlfriend still lived there. She wasn't being any different towards me, like it was kind of whatever. And then come Valentine's Day, I'm like, okay, so, you guys have both been acting really strange. Like, she doesn't even look at me or talk to me or anything. Her and I were kind of cool, like we were kind of friends-ish. Boyfriend has been being super shitty and be like starting fights and like being mean and whatever. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on? Like, what I miss? And finally they're like, okay, so we all need to sit down and talk. And I'm like, okay, what do we all need to talk about that has anything to do with our relationship? Like, what? Didn't click just yet. And so he says, well, her and I ended up sleeping together while you were visiting your mom. And I'm like, okay, so I get up and I'm gonna leave. And he's like, no, 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 like, not, no, we need to talk more. And I'm like, what is there left to say? Like, 16, I had some balls. I don't know where they went, but they were there at the time. Um, and he's like, well, no, like, we need to talk more. And I'm like, I can't imagine what else you would have to say, but okay, whatever. So we're sitting there, and basically it came out that they had been sleeping together like every single day since that first one when I was visiting my mom. So they had basically been cheating together for like almost 2 months, which that's cool. We'd been together for like 4, and he was cheating for half of it. So I was like, oh, okay. And then somehow it ended up like, we'd been friends for like 8 months before we even got together in the first place. So I was like, you know, 8 months of being friends and then like 4 months together. Yeah, 2 of them were cheating, but like, I really care. We can get past this. We can fix it. Just stop cheating, basically. He never did stop cheating, but that's not the point. So basically, on Valentine's Day, I figured out that he was a lying, cheating piece of shit and stayed like a fucking idiot.